Thank you for joining me again today. In a world increasingly defined by superpower rivalries, it appears that one country is playing a dangerous balancing act between two of the largest forces on the planet, China and the United States. And now this balancing act has taken a decisive turn. In a secretive yet monumental agreement, it seems that Pakistan has promised China something it's long wanted: a military base at the strategic port of Gwadar. Now, this alleged concession comes as Pakistan struggles to repair its relations with China, even as it attempts to maintain ties with the United States. This controversial story was broken by DropSite, a recent publication site that has been set up by two journalists that previously worked for The Intercept, and whilst there broke several important stories on Pakistan, including the one on the cipher outlining US pressure to oust former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Now, on the current story they write, we know this story will get an unusually high percentage of its readers from various intelligence agencies around the world, as it's based on documents even they probably don't have access to. If true, it would be huge news, and to me personally, it's hard to believe for Pakistan to pull something like this in the current scenario when the country is roiling from an economic crisis and is entirely dependent upon Western support. The news has been denied by both China and the Pakistan Foreign Office. The Foreign Office spokesperson Mumtaz Zara Baloch said, "This speculation is completely unfounded and we reject it. There is absolutely no basis for these speculations. Pakistan, as we have said in the past, has no plans to offer bases to a foreign government or military directed against any other country." However, we know that Pakistani strategy in general has been short-sighted and not well thought through always. DropSite say they have a collection of highly confidential internal strategic assessments, reports and diplomatic cables produced between 2023 and 2024. And it's not clear who's leaked these documents to them, whether it was Pakistani sources or even United States intelligence sources who may have wanted the news to become public. But the DropSite says documents also show that Pakistan's military-backed government privately promised Beijing a long-coveted concession, a Chinese military base in the key port city of Gwadar. The government of Pakistan, according to DropSite, has given the highest level positive assurances to their Chinese counterparts for strategic utilization of Gwadar in due time. Now, due time is important because it doesn't necessarily mean this is happening overnight. So there could potentially be some kind of vague agreement that in due time we will give you Gwadar in terms of the naval base. However, if the news is true, it would be a massive challenge for the United States foreign policy, and they're not likely to take it lying down. There is absolutely no way the United States can afford China to sit in the middle of the Indian Ocean, overlooking India, Middle East, Africa, and get a clear military and trade route without the pressure of the choke point that we have at the Malacca Straits. China containment policy would literally be turning on its head. Even developing Gwadar as an economic hotspot is a threat for most of the countries in the region. But why would Pakistan, a country precariously surviving economically and dependent upon United States goodwill and support, make such a bold move against United States interests? And what does this mean for the future of global power in that region? I hope you will like, share the video and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Today I am deep diving into a story that reveals how Pakistan is caught in the middle of this growing tug of war between China and the United States. The decisions made here could reshape global military power for years to come. For decades, Pakistan has been a key ally of the United States, especially during the Cold War and the War on Terror. They have what would be considered a transactional relationships par excellence. The Pakistani military in particular has long relied on US military equipment, and the US relies on the Pakistani military to do its work in that region. Pakistani elites also have this deep personal and financial ties to the West as well. However, ignoring the brief period of slightly better relations between Prime Minister Imran Khan and President Donald Trump, in general, Pakistan's relationship with the United States has been strained over the past several years. There hasn't been much to join the two at the hip, as they say. The United States was winding down its involvement in Afghanistan, and following the end of the US war in Afghanistan in August 2021 and the scenes that emerged, which were almost reminiscent of those of Vietnam.
But first, America's longest war is over. The final military flight of American troops left Afghanistan just before midnight on what is now Tuesday, August 31st in Kabul, after 20 years of war.
Sharp comments made the very next day, August the 16th, by the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, where he announced that Afghans had broken the shackles of slavery, and along with the scenes of his ISI chief General Faiz Hamid sipping tea in Afghanistan the next day after the Afghan Taliban takeover, it did not sit well with the United States. And the relationship between Pakistan and the US has remained tense during the whole period that Prime Minister Imran Khan was in power until his ouster in April 8, 2022, allegedly under their bidding. In October 2022, the Pakistani military chief Qamar Javed Bajwa made an official visit to the US, which he'd been desperately angling for a while. Now, during this visit, he emphasized the military's preference for American weapons over Chinese ones, about which he apparently made some very negative comments. And to further woo the Americans, as DropSite reports, he expressed his preference for American sitcoms over Chinese food. Now, if only it was so easy to win over a superpower by saying such comments. He even promised better relations with India, which is the army's arch nemesis and has for decades been used by them as the bogeyman to ensure that they get ever large resources from the country's ever shrinking economic pie. They report him as him having said, "We feel it is time to bury the past and move forward." He added the fact that the onus for meaningful dialogue does rest on India. Our neighbor will have to create a conducive environment, particularly in occupied Kashmir. The US has been pressurizing Pakistan to improve relations with India for a while now, so that India did not have to worry about a two-front war and could focus on the United States' own enemy number one, China. The problem for Pakistan was, despite doing Donald Lu's bidding for a more pliant government, its gamble with the United States wasn't paying off quickly enough. The United States isn't offering the kind of support that Islamabad hoped for.
Chairman, I want to be very clear on this point. These allegations, this conspiracy theory is a lie. It is a complete falsehood. I have reviewed the press reporting related to this, what's called the cipher in Pakistan, the alleged leak diplomatic cable from the embassy here. It is not accurate. It at no point does it accuse the United States government or me personally of taking steps against Imran Khan.
The initial IMF support program that did come through has not been extended so far, as Pakistan desperately needs it to be. And the economic crisis continued to grip the country. 1 year earlier, the chief of the army, General Asim Munir, in conversation with top countries' businessmen, promised them over $75 to $100 billion that would come from the Middle Eastern countries in the form of grants, budgetary support and investments. But these countries were neither pushed by the United States to deliver, and nor have they been particularly happy with the troubled political situation in Pakistan and have not been interested in giving any money. At the same time, whilst making these obvious overtures, seemingly ready to sell the Chinese out to the United States, they've peeved off the Chinese. Chinese officials are said to have expressed their displeasure with Islamabad for switching camps. Now, when former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan in August 2022, Pakistan, who usually makes strong statements in favor of Chinese government policies, in this particular case gave a very mild comment. Pakistan reaffirms its strong commitment to the One China policy and firmly supports China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, the Ministry of Finance Affairs said in a press statement. Now, similarly, the United States ambassador's visit to Gwadar in September 2023 was noted by the Chinese. While the Chinese initially helped to roll over the $2 billion debt that was due to them by Pakistan, in recent months they've been stalling from doing much more. China has been Pakistan's closest ally in Asia, funding billions of dollars of projects. Over $62 billion is often thrown around, said to have been invested as part of the infrastructure projects under CPEC, a critical part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. But even those projects are now stalling and not being completed. The relationship between the Iron Brothers, which many Pakistani politicians and especially the Sharif brothers liken them to as being higher than the Himalayas, deeper than the ocean, sweeter than honey, and stronger than steel, has recently become very cold and very strained. Pakistan, which usually balanced its relationship between the United States and China, is being seen by the Chinese have gone too far into the US camp at their cost. Now, Pakistan's foreign policy is run by its generals. Civilians don't get a say in foreign policy, and they get put back in their position wherever they try to have a say in that foreign policy. I mean, witness what happened to the former Prime Ministers Nawaz Sharif in 2017 and Imran Khan in 2022. And it's believed that the present army chief, Asim Munir, who's frustrated by the lack of progress on the United States front and wants to show them that he's got strong options out there, is now desperately trying to improve his relations with the Chinese. And it's in light of this that the decision to give the Chinese military base in Gwadar should be seen. In return, Pakistan would get large economic and military assistance. These discussions are said to have been happening in a forum which the drop site has told us is called the Consultation on Strategic Defence and Security Cooperation, or 2+2 Dialogue. It is a dangerous gamble if indeed it is true. The two countries have a close military relationship, and many would describe it closer than even the Russian-Sino relationship. China has been Pakistan's largest provider of arms for decades. China and Pakistan are also partnering in the joint development of the next generation military aircraft. For Pakistan, the Chinese provided cheap arms that they could not afford otherwise from the United States, even if it agreed to giving them. The two countries are also in discussion to set up a joint security team, which China has been asking for a while to protect its nationals working in Pakistan. Now, Pakistan had been resisting this idea for some time, as it's seen as an infringement of its sovereignty. However, army security teams that had originally been set up to protect the Chinese nationals don't seem to be doing enough to be keeping them safe. A military base at the strategic port of Gwadar, if given by Pakistan, would be a huge message to the United States. Gwadar is no ordinary port. It sits at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important waterways for global energy shipments. It overlooks the Persian Gulf. For China, Gwadar would be what it calls at a strategic strong point. It is the key to expanding Chinese influence westwards and reducing its reliance on the contested South China Sea. Gwadar is also the final stop on China's land corridor through Pakistan, giving Beijing the direct route to the Arabian Sea. It has been investing in different economic projects in the region for over 2 decades. China first began investing its development in Gwadar in 2002 with an initial commitment of $250 million. But most have had little economic return for both the Chinese or the locals, which suggests that the Chinese may have an alternative, bigger strategic plan for being in that region. This isn't just about Pakistan, it's about China's broader military and geopolitical ambitions. Having a military base there would be a game changer for China's global economic and military ambitions. China has been slowly building a network of strategic military bases around the world, including in Djibouti, the South China Sea, and now potentially Gwadar. China has the world's largest navy. So for China, Gwadar would be a key piece in its string of pearls strategy to challenge the United States' dominance in global shipping corridors and military presence. For Pakistan, however, this decision of giving a naval base to China could come with serious consequences. The US has long feared China's expansion into the Persian Gulf region, which undermines America's strategic presence in that region. In a scenario like this, they are likely to rapidly up their game to contain China, both economically and militarily. Such direct escalation by China would not necessarily benefit it also in the long run, and does go against Deng Xiaoping's very wise philosophy of hide your strength and bide your time. In response to China's expansion in the Indian Ocean, the Indians, along with United States support, already have another strategy which they call the necklace of diamonds, which contains China. But any potential Chinese military sitting in Gwadar will raise the stakes for India and the United States and will increase the tensions between China and the US as well as China and India. The Quad alliance is likely to become stronger and much more important to both these countries. Now, a military base in Gwadar would most definitely also escalate tensions between Islamabad and Washington. Pakistan has long tried to play both sides, but could this concession to China spell the end of its relationship with the United States? The fallout from this would be immense. So what's next for Pakistan, and how will this play out on the global stage? Pakistan's promise to China of a military base at Gwadar is a turning point in its geopolitical strategy if it delivers on it. As the country's economy crumbles and its political system faces increasing instability, the military's decision to side with China could reshape the region for decades to come. Oh, and I left out India in all this, and you can imagine their reaction over this possibility of a Chinese navy sitting right in their neighborhood. They're not going to be happy. If you found this vlog informative, do tell me what you think about Pakistan's decision. Could this lead to major changes in the global power dynamics? Let's discuss this, and do like, share and subscribe to the channel.